us here in a minute or two, but we'll go ahead and get started. This is call to order the Waterloo Board of Adjustment regular meeting for Tuesday, April 27th. We have a change we have to vote on prior to looking at our agenda. So we need a motion to approve an exception to the notice requirement due to the notice of signs for agenda items being posted less than 10 days prior to the meeting. And this requires 2/3 of the members present. So 3 out of the 4. Before I request the motion, is there on file any objections to any of the decision items today?
This is Western staff. There was one call on the tent on Logan Street, but they were all for it, but they just had questions. I don't know if the other staff members had any calls or any objections.
This is Schrader with staff. I'm not aware of any other objections to any of the items. And the signs were placed 6 days, so just short of the 10 days. And 2 of the agenda items are special permits, which also involve notice mailed to property owners within 250 feet.
Okay.
Okay, is there anybody on today that would be an objection? I don't know who all 14 people are here, so do we have anybody online that's objecting to any of the items, any of the decision items? Okay. So is there any other discussion on this before we move on this? Or does someone want to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve an exception to the notice requirement due to the notice signs for agenda items being posted less than 10 days prior to the meeting.
Second.
Oh, there you are. It's okay. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So, is there any additions or corrections to the agenda for today? If not, any, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve the April 27th, 2021 agenda. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Item 3, approval of the March 23rd, 2021 minutes. Are there any additions or corrections need to be made?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Okay.
And that question is to Eric Schrader about item number 8, the Thompson variance. We stipulated that garage, the old garage, had to be demolished by August 1st. And I'm wondering if you have set up a recall file so that you can make sure that the citizen has done what was ordered by the board.
Making sure I'm not muted. This is Schrader with staff. Yes, we do have a system in place for that now. We had an index of all items, and we've just now added to it a whole separate index specifically for items that need follow-up action.
Excellent. Just checking.
Thank you, Mr. Schrader.
Yes.
Okay. Any other additions or corrections or questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move the approval of the March 23rd minutes as presented.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. We have 5 decision items today. First one is a request by Terrell Hoskins Senior for a special permit to allow for a pop-up drive-in movie theater and a variance to the hard surface requirements on the grounds of the National Cattle Congress in an M1 light industrial district located at 204 Amesboro. Staff report.
This is Western staff. The future land use map designates this area as light industrial. The proposed use appears to be compatible to the future land use map and comprehensive plan. The proposed pop-up drive-in movie theater will have a 50-foot inflatable theater screen, an industrial projector, laptop, and generator. The screen will be set up at the far west end of the lot. The applicant plans to have enough parking for between 150 and 250 vehicles, including 2-way lanes for efficient traffic flow. There's a small amount of recycled asphalt on the portion of the 7.9 acre lot. However, the proposed parking area is not hard surface as required. The applicant stated that the site is compact and flat and feels that there would not be any issues with handicap accessibility. Also, it may be hard to justify the expense at this time, as this will be the first year for the drive-in theater, so it's difficult to predict the future response from the community. And the theater would be on a leased land, which if the drive-in theater is not successful, the investment in hard surfacing would be lost. However, the applicant would be willing to revisit installing new hard surfacing on a portion of the lot, particularly around the porta potties and creating handicap stalls in the future. Past drive-in theaters typically had a permanent structure which housed a kitchen where customers could purchase food and snacks. However, the applicant is not planning on building any permanent structures on the site, but plans to lease spaces to a variety of food vendors instead. There will be ADA compliant porta potties available, as well as access to permanent bathroom on the Cattle Congress grounds on the east side of the drive-in site. Site plan shows that the porta potties as well as food vendors will be located to the rear of the parking area to the east. The applicant has proposed that customer access be from private streets owned by National Cattle Congress. To access the proposed site, the customers will take Amesboro Avenue to Courier Street and then be guided by either an employee or visible sign or both to turn down Courier Street to the private street. Private street travels under Amesboro Avenue to a gate where customers will show proof of their online ticket purchase, or they'll be able to pay cash at the gate and then continue on to the drive-in theater site. Once on the drive-in theater grounds, customers will be guided to the parking area to choose a parking spot in front of the movie screen. The hours of operation will be from 9 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The applicant plans on showing a double feature each night with an approximate combined movie playtime of 3 hours and 30 minutes. On the nights that children or family movies are played, there will be a short laser show around 8:45 p.m. with the first movie showing at 9. Once a month, Friday, Saturday nights, the applicant plans to have a 10 to 20 minute firework display instead of a laser light show before the movie begins. Now, the applicant plans to hire a small team of security guards to monitor the site during movies to ensure the event is peaceful and is alcohol and drug free. At the technical review committee meeting, the fire department explained that Chapter 31 of the Fire Code requires that the inflatable movie screen and other temporary membrane structures associated with the drive-in theater must meet NFPA 701 requirements. Many of these types of structures are manufactured to meet those requirements. They typically have a label on them that states that they're fireproof or meet those requirements. The proposed inflatable screen is required to have a minimum 20-foot setback from all property lines, from all other structures and portable generators being used on the site. It was also questioned whether a movie theater license would be required. Staff consulted with city clerk on whether the license is needed for the proposed drive-in theater, and it was determined that the city code only requires theater licenses for enclosed theaters. The applicant has not proposed any permanent structures at this time, therefore a license is not required. If the applicant were to request to build a permanent structure in the future, such as a snack bar, then there would be a need for further review. The building department recommends that the applicant place hard surfacing in front of the ADA compliant porta potties and provide minimum required hard surfacing. Handicap parking stalls required based on the number of cars expected. Staff received comments of concern from the IDOT regarding the traffic and safety. There are concerns with the screen facing northbound US Highway 218 traffic, as it could cause distraction to drivers as well as cause some accumulation of traffic along the highway to watch movies or fireworks. If this was to happen, the DOT could install no parking signs along the portion of US Highway 218 adjacent to drive-in theater site to combat the issue if that was to arise. They've actually had to do that in other parts of the state. As well as to help with issues, the DOT suggests switching the direction of the screen and projector so it faces southbound, as it would be harder for traffic to see the screen from US 218 and could also help to keep headlights from shining on cars onto the movie screen. Therefore, staff recommends that the request by Terrell M. Hoskins Sr. for a special permit to allow for a drive-in movie theater on the grounds of the National Cattle Congress located at 204 Amesboro in the M1 Light Industrial District be approved for the following reasons. The special permit should not have a negative impact on the surrounding area. Number two, the special permit should not have a negative impact on traffic conditions in the area. And number three, the request is compatible with typical National Cattle Congress events and would be a good use of an area that has been used as overflow parking.
Okay.
This
Right.
is Trader with staff. There was a updated staff report after the Planning and Zoning Commission took a look at this, but must have accidentally not gotten that one in the packet, Chris. But that did note that the Planning Commission did unanimously recommend approval. And then also, as noted on the agenda, there is the variance request that this staff report doesn't talk about, and that included the staff recommendation of approval of that variance to the hard surfacing requirement.
And also in your packet, there's option A. Option A is the inflatable screen is on the far end of the lot towards the west. After explaining to the applicant that DOT was a little concerned, they provided an option B as well, where the screen is on the east side of the lot. So he's willing to do either.
So I do have a few questions. I don't know which question to ask first. If he puts are we requiring that he pick up either east or west? Are we asking, Are we trying to follow what the DOT has suggested? I know
Well,
we've got an option B here.
I'm sure Eric has an opinion on this, but I would say it's up to you guys. If you feel that you agree with DOT that that could be an issue where the screen could create people pulling over and watching the movie from the side of the road, and you're concerned about that, you could require him to do option B.
This is Schrader with staff. Yeah, I agree. The DOT was just noting it as a suggestion. They weren't necessarily saying it as a requirement. So, the board could approve it as either, or if you're concerned with the option A, you could just approve the option B. I'm not sure if the applicant is on. He was on for the P&Z meeting, and he did indicate that he was okay with either. There were actually some potential benefits to the layout of option B because, you could have headlights that might be in option A that would end up be potentially shining on the screen, which could distract the viewers. And it also could put him closer to an electrical power source, which could be useful for him as well. So, but at this point, he was still asking for approval of both, but noting that he thought he could make either work.
Okay.
Yeah, I will say on behalf of the applicant, he does work second shift and could not make it today.
Okay, so also, should our special permit approval require the type of inflatable screen? Or is that something we need to worry about, or is that just the fire department or building departments worry?
Eric, you can speak on this, but from what I understand, that is between the building and fire department. Before they're actually granted a permit, they need to make sure that they qualify.
And I don't think that they're concerned. It would basically come down to setbacks based on what fire rating it met, I think.
No, I thought it just had to have that label, period. Okay. And then the setbacks as well.
Oh, okay.
Is what I understood.
And then my last question would be, what would be considered hard surface around the porta potties if we required that? Is it blacktop?
So it'd be either blacktop or concrete, and the ADA requirements would have minimum widths and lengths for the maneuvering. I think there, like was noted in the staff report, there is some recycled asphalt out there. So I think there is some question from the building code standpoint if it could meet code. There's also access to existing permanent building bathrooms, but they're not, I don't know the distance, but they're a ways away. The applicant has an arrow pointing to permanent restrooms on the site plans provided, but it's actually not quite pointing to them. It's a little further away past the other two animal buildings on the campus there.
Yeah. Those are my questions. I'll turn it over to anybody else that might have a question.
Mr. Chair, it's Jerry. I have a question. And it deals with fireworks. The current ordinance on fireworks says that they can be, unfortunately, fired off July 4th, noon to 11 p.m. and July 3 and July 5 from noon to 10 p.m. So that, in my opinion, must be stipulated in whatever agreement we make with this gentleman.
This is Schrader with staff. That is not accurate. Special event fireworks that are separately licensed and permitted from the city of Waterloo are specifically separate from the section of code you're referring to, dealing with the average citizen setting off private fireworks.
Help me understand that, Eric. Then if he runs all summer, he could have fireworks on the weekends?
Yes, just like Bucks Stadium, for instance.
Ooh, I hate that ordinance.
Okay, any other questions?
Now, he has indicated that he would be willing to not do fireworks if that was a significant concern of the approving entities, which would be you.
Yep.
And regardless of whether you dictated that or not, the actual permitting of fireworks would have to go through the city council approval process.
Okay, now I was not clear on the announcement you made, Eric. The P and Z unanimously approved it, but then what was the variance? I'm not clear on that.
Right, so this entire area, it was considered an overflow parking lot to Cattle Congress. It was originally just grass, and it's been used as a parking area for, well before adoption of the zoning ordinance. So it was a grandfathered in overflow parking. At some point, it's been quite a few years ago now, but 10 or so years ago, they did come in and improve it slightly, putting some recycled asphalt down on quite a bit of it, which is still not a up to code parking requirement. It doesn't meet asphalt or cement standards per the current code, but it was grandfathered in as an overflow parking lot to Cattle Congress. But the grandfather doesn't carry forward to a new use. This is a new use proposing on the site. So without a variance, they would have to pave the entire area that they were going to use for vehicular use area. They're asking for a variance to that, and given that it is an existing grandfathered overflow parking area to the Cattle Congress facility, we didn't see an issue with that and are recommending approval of the variance. Like he did note, he is willing to come back and look depending on if it's successful, because the other thing is he is leasing this space from Cattle Congress, so he would not want to make a huge capital investment on concrete on something that he's not even sure, if it's going to be there for a long, years ahead, or if it won't work very well. Obviously, he's hoping that it works very well and is successful, but he is, if it is successful, open to coming back and looking at, paving some areas to kind of help improve the handicap parking spaces and access to handicap porta potties. But he is hoping that the current recycled asphalt will be deemed sufficient for the short run.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, this is April.
Okay.
I have a few questions. The first one is the hard surface area that would be ADA requirement. Would that also include for around the food areas? I know it sounds like he's going to have food trucks there. So would that be a hard surface requirement as well around the food areas?
This is Schrader with staff. I'm actually not sure on that. I would have to pose that question to the building official. That's a good question. I am not sure.
Eric, it looks like the food vendors would be on the opposite side as the porta potties. So it would be two separate hard surface areas if that's what we required.
In setup B, he is showing them opposite, although he, as noted, he's hoping to get by with no additional hard surfacing for the short run, but if the building inspections department would require some, even for initial use for ADA compliance, I'm guessing you would then look to put the group that all together. So he's paving one area and having it meet for ADA parking spots and then any other requirements.
So Eric, are you saying that if we didn't require it, the building department still could require it?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so my next question would really be more like for the applicant. And maybe you guys know, since it's going to be like a family atmosphere, and he stated that he would have security, will he be employing like off-duty Waterloo police officers or county deputies, or will he be hiring a private security company to ensure that there's no drugs and alcohol there?
This is Westman staff. As far as I know, that was not clarified as to who security would be. I just get the feeling, and Eric, you can chime in, you met with him at the same time I did. I think this first year, he doesn't know how successful it's going to be. So I can't imagine he's going to pay off-duty police officers. He's probably going to just have security folks try to walk around and take care of the site. Did that answer your question at all?
Well, kind of.
Kind of.
Well, I guess that's a part of my the second part of my question is exactly how is he going to ensure that drugs and alcohol are not present?
Well, I guess all we can do is you look at his letter, and it's in the staff report. He says he's going to have security to make sure it's drug and alcohol free. It doesn't specifically say how, other than he's going to hire security. It doesn't say who or what kind. So
that's a really important thing to me. And another question that I have is then for traffic control. We all know what it's like when Cattle Congress is going on, and I realize that that is a lot more people. But for this sort of venue, I'm guessing people will be trickling in. But when it's time for people to leave, and there are people trying to make a left-hand turn out of there onto Amesboro, it's going to be crazy. And how are we going to control this traffic? There's not a stoplight there. And in the past, I've always, in my entire lifetime, seen Waterloo Police Department there doing traffic control.
This is Schrader with staff. Any special events that require traffic control, it is at the responsibility of the event to hire the personnel that do that traffic control. So when you see Cattle Congress have it there, they are paying for those officers to be there.
So would he be required to have traffic control there?
Schrader with staff, I would say that would be up to the board if they were going to require it as a condition of the approval. If it was not a condition of the approval, then I would say the answer would be he would not be required unless the police department determined that he was creating a safety issue and required it, which they could do regardless of whether or not it was a condition. The only thing I would say regarding the difference between his events and the Cattle Congress events, I mean, obviously his is less, and you acknowledge that. But the other thing is when his lets out, that traffic is going to be coming essentially from one direction. And then, yeah, the left-hand movement out onto Amesboro is going to be the difficult one, but during a normal cattle congress event, the traffic flow on Amesboro in both directions is already significantly elevated, making it very difficult for that traffic to get out, whereas probably without any other events going on, the amount of traffic on Amesboro is going to be a lot less, but there's still going to be I understand what you're saying. There's still going to be some delay there, as you're going to have to wait for any existing traffic on Amesboro to clear out of the way so that left-hand turns can be made out of the site. So it's certainly something that if it's not a condition of the approval, that he's going to have to take into consideration regardless.
You also have to consider it's going to be like 12:30 in the morning when midnight when these movies get out. So there's not going to be a lot of traffic out there coming and going. Just be the traffic from the theater.
Right, right. And if we can, well, I don't know that we can do anything about it, but if we can reinforce, the no drugs and alcohol there, that would be helpful, because then we don't have people who have consumed things leaving there who are under the influence.
This is Westminster staff. One thing that the applicant did state, the agreement between him and the National Cattle Congress, he would not have movie night on, say, during the Cattle Congress or during motocross, or they're going to work very closely to make sure that they don't have too many events going on at the same time.
Okay. And my last thing that I wanted to bring up was directional signs that goes along with that traffic control. The voluntary compliance signs, this lane to turn right, this lane to turn left, here's the exits, here's the entrance, that sort of thing. And would he need a variance for signage there?
This is Schrader with staff. No, we do not require any sort of special rules or variances for traffic control directional signage.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
And that outlet onto Amesboro is from Courier Street, which is, a pretty small street, basically 2-lane, one in and one out, but presumably when the movies are letting out, yeah, you could probably effectively turn it into a one-way street out, creating to where there'd be essentially a right turn lane and a left turn lane.
This is Jerry. I have another question.
Okay.
Eric, surely, there are a lot of other events at the Cattle Congress. How do they manage the ingress and egress of the traffic when events begin and end?
They usually have hired Waterloo police officers to run traffic control.
Uh-huh.
And in the chat, there was a question on, so how will people hear the movies? So they, if you've been to a pop-up theater like this, I've been to one. Typically what they do is they will put up some speakers alongside the screen, but that may have limited usefulness to those in the far back. So then usually they also will work with a local radio station to have a channel to where you can turn to that channel on your radio and listen to the movie through your car radio.
Yeah. Is there Anybody there and anybody on that wishes to speak in favor of the request? I understand the applicant is
Mr.
not on.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
this is Beckman. I was waiting my turn.
okay.
John Childs, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I think all the things that have been said have kind of answered everything I had to think about. So I'm fine.
Okay, thank you. So if I can have just a couple of minutes here. The applicant states that the approximate combined movie playtime is 3.5 hours, with movies starting at 9 o'clock. There are several movies that run 2 hours in length, and I assume that there's going to be some sort of a break from the first movie to the second. So you're kind of looking at closer to 1:30, perhaps, before things would wrap up. Has that been addressed with the applicant by anybody?
This is Schrader with staff. That was discussed a little bit. I think he will specifically pick movies, keeping in mind the movie runtime. I would guess if he picked one movie that was a little longer, then he might specifically pick a second movie to be played that evening that would be a little bit shorter to try and take that into consideration. I think it is a possibility that, if he did slightly longer, that it would be going a little bit later. Given its location, it's not really close to any residential areas. So from a staff standpoint, we weren't proposing to limit hours of operation and suggest that he has to shut it down earlier.
He's going to try to stay within that time frame, though.
That's what was discussed, and he discussed family friendly movies is his goal.
Okay. Bringing a drive-in movie theater back to this area is kind of exciting, and I hope he succeeds. But I guess listening to the rest of the board, I think we want to make sure that it's done properly, safely, so that it's successful and there's few, if any, problems. I would hope, and Eric and Chris, perhaps you guys can respond to this. I would hope the Cattle Congress is working closely with this gentleman to help take care of any problems, issues, concerns, so that it is successful. Do you have that impression?
Chris, you're muted.
Yeah, I certainly, I talked with him quite a bit, and Eric has as well. I mean, it's something that he wanted to do for his own children. His children have never been to a drive-in theater before, and so he wanted to recreate that experience and bring that back to the community. So he's very family-oriented, and I think he's very determined to make sure it stays very safe and civil and family-oriented. So,
and this is Schrader. The only thing I would add is we know he has been in discussions with Cattle Congress about the details. I'm not aware that anyone from the city has directly had conversations with Cattle Congress, but we certainly could to make sure that, it seems like everything is like you say, being worked out. Those type of details have all been discussed and are being worked out, but we can certainly
Cattle Congress has a great deal of Cattle Congress has a great deal of experience with these types of events. So I hope that they're talking with each other to make sure that it is done properly and safely. The only other thing I have, Mr. Chair, is that we started off with the discussion with the location of the screen. I went out and drove on Highway 218, both northbound and southbound, and I personally feel that for the safety of traffic, that this screen should be set up on the east end of this site for that reason. So I would like to see us make that a requirement, not just leave it up to them. I think we should make that a requirement, that the screen is set up on the east end of this site as opposed to the west end.
Any other questions?
I'm done.
Okay. Anybody there wish to speak in favor of the request? Okay, hearing or seeing none. Is there anybody wish to speak against the request? In opposition to the request? Okay, is there any further discussion, or if not, I'd entertain a motion. I guess I'm before I ask for that, I probably agree that with John about the being on the west end, or I'm sorry, on the east end, is a far better scenario.
I would agree as well.
And I would have to say, I doubt that this is going to be totally alcohol free. I don't think there's any way that you could police that. I think you could police it, that it wouldn't be out of hand. But if you're sitting in your car, they're not going to come up and look in the car and see if you have a beer in your hand there.
That is true. I feel like if a Waterloo police officer or a deputy were walking around as security, people would be less likely to bring in a cooler full of beer or whatever they choose to drink that's prohibited. But if you have your friends for security, they might let things slide for their friends.
Is open container even legal in Iowa?
No.
This is Schrader with staff. I don't think open container would come into play on Cattle Congress property, though.
Right. It's
Cattle
not until they
Congress,
left.
yeah, Cattle Congress can sell alcohol at events and does sell alcohol at some events. I don't know. I don't necessarily think they do at all events, but they certainly do at some events.
Well, yeah, but you're not sitting in your car for Cattle Congress. I mean, once you leave, you're still in your car. If you have an open thing of beer and you get caught on the way out, you're getting a deep.
Oh, absolutely. As soon as you
So-
would hit the public road, that would be open container violation, yes.
Yeah.
Eric, if this, God forbid, if this thing becomes problematic, is there a mechanism in place to pull the plug on this?
This is Trader with staff. I'm not too sure what else there might be, but it certainly would be an option to approve it on a temporary basis to essentially force them to come back. I would say if we do that, we probably would want to put the time period out there, past next year's operating season, because depending on what all he has to do for, ADA compliant issues and whatnot, he may not be, I know he wants to be up and operating this season, but if you did put a temporary approval on it, I would recommend that you go through next year, and that would be one
Right.
surefire way to have a way to pull the plug on it.
This is Western staff. In my opinion, I think you could treat it just like a bar or something like that. If there's so many calls within a certain parameter of time, it could become a nuisance situation, and then you can deal with it then. I'd hate to limit him right away out the gate on his first year. I guess is my thought.
I actually agree with that.
I agree with
So-
that.
Yeah, so do I. But if we approve this, does he then have permission to do this in perpetuity?
Yep.
Well, yeah, I agree with Chris. If it becomes a nuisance, then there are nuisance ordinances that will take care of it.
Right.
I don't think that's going to happen either. I mean, I understand that we're taking account for all possible situations, but I think this is a positive thing for a city that is expanding its entertainment options in a Cedar Valley that has very little. So, I mean,
Did we get an answer to Mr. Beckman's question?
What question?
I thought he asked if it was going to be approved in perpetuity.
Oh,
Yeah, everyone's
yeah,
okay.
we were kind of quiet about that. Yes,
Oh, thank
it's
you.
for perpetuity.
Mr. Schrader with staff, yes, absent change in how you approve it, if you'd approve it to be on a temporary basis you've done that a few times in the past where you've given something that was requested for permanent approval, you've given it temporary approval with a note that they have to come back and reevaluate after a certain time period and then decide whether to be permanent. I don't think that's needed here, but it would be an option.
Eric, I probably have asked this 10 times and I keep forgetting, is the special permit good for him or for the property?
For the property.
So it could, Cattle Congress could take it over and run it as this, or
Correct.
could sell
Or
it to
turn over
anybody.
to someone else, yep.
All right.
So
Aye.
what's the board's pleasure in regards to that? To make this permanent or temporary?
Permanent,
Permanent with the B option is like the ideal.
I agree.
I feel like a temporary with a longer term would be smart because we need to think about the ADA compliance as
No,
well.
we don't.
Yeah,
No,
that's not-
If we give him this permit forever and he never has to do anything ADA compliant, how does that help the people who are handicapped?
That's just not under our discretion. That's ADA that's building inspections, right?
The Schrader with staff, yes, that is under the authority of the building inspections department. They will review that and determine what ADA compliance requirements would come into play and what changes, if any, would be needed.
But just to clarify, if they let them get by the first year, they're not going to change it in subsequent years unless there's a change in the law. So if they don't require any hard surface, say in year one, they're not going to require it in year 2 to 10.
Is
And I
that
feel like-
true?
I think that would be a mistake on our part.
Here's a feeling that I have after talking with fire and building and everyone. It's one of those deals where, yeah, we really should do it. However, we know this is a new thing that we haven't had drive-in theaters for many years. We're not sure how well it's going to work, and it sounds like they want the theater to do it, but they understand it's their first year and they have no idea how successful it's going to be, and do you require them to spend that kind of money? So it sounds like they're trying to be flexible, but I'm pretty certain if it makes it a second, third year, that we're going to make sure that it happens.
So could we do a temporary variance for 2 years or 3 years?
That's what I was hinting towards.
I mean, I think that would make more sense than just giving an infinite amount of time.
Yeah, we've done that many times where a new business, you're not really sure how well it's going to do. We've given them, 2-3 years to see how well it goes and then require them to do it.
If we're gonna do temporary, I'd be more comfortable with 3 years just because of this year being COVID.
Agreed.
And this is Schrader with staff. I would recommend that you pick a end of calendar year and pick your year rather than say 3 years, just because current approval is kind of in the middle of a season otherwise.
All right, I need clarity here. We have no jurisdiction on the ADA compliance factors. And yet we keep talking about this hard surfacing and ADA compliance factors.
No,
Help
we
me
could,
understand why we're doing this.
no, we could require the hard surfacing.
This is Schrader with staff. Yes, you could require the hard surfacing, and per code, they really would need hard surfacing. It really should have the hard surfacing to begin with, but they're asking for a variance to that and are pointing to the uniqueness of this existing grandfathered in semi-hard surface parking lot.
Did that answer your question, Jerry? Answer your question. I'm sorry. I think I said asked.
Yeah, it did. And so I'm thinking that the 3 years would be ending December 31st, 2024,
Yes.
23.
24, because we're right in the
24.
middle of this.
Yeah, we're in 2021 now.
So essentially that would be, if they got up and running halfway through this year, that would be 4 seasons.
Well, I'm thinking he might not be ready till fall because of all the stuff that has to go on. And, 24 is good for me.
Okay, I'm going to move this on and say I'm requesting somebody make a motion. Don't all speak at once.
All right, I'll go. I move that we approve the special permit to allow Terrell M. Hoskins Jr. for a drive-in movie theater on the grounds of the National Cattle Congress located at 204 Amesboro in the M1 Light Industrial District be approved for the following reasons. 1, the special permit should not have a negative impact on the surrounding area. 2, the special permit should not have a negative impact on traffic conditions in the area. 3, the request is compatible with typical National Cattle Congress events and would be a good use of an area that has been used as an overflow parking lot, which has been grandfathered in for the hard surfacing requirements. 4, we approve a variance to the hard surface requirement. 5, we direct that the screen be placed at the east end of the site for safety traffic reasons. And 6, we're issuing a special permit that will, for 3+ years, that will expire December 31st, 2024.
Okay, is there a second?
Well, I'll second that. Well done, Jerry.
Oh, thanks.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I think it's Mr. Hoskins Senior. Is that correct?
Did I read that or not?
I think you might have said junior.
Sorry, it is senior. Thank you.
okay. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay, we have our next request by Dan Baker on behalf of Seed Sowers for a special permit to allow for a temporary religious facility in an R3 multiple residence district located south of 222 Logan Avenue. Staff report.
This is Western with staff, and in light of the fact that we spent an hour on the first one, I've been requested to kind of shortcut things here. I'm just going to explain that the applicant just simply asking to put up a 30 by 40, 1,200 square foot tent on a vacant lot owned by Salvation Army, which is directly to the east of the Salvation Army headquarters. They're going to be there for 2 weeks, and they'll run everything with a generator, and they'll have to meet the same requirements as the pop-up movie theater and meet the NFPA 701 requirements, which I have talked to Dan Baker, and he's pretty certain that his tent that they're using has that. And they're going to have 2 open exits with lighted exit signs. They're going to meet the minimum 20-foot setbacks from all property lines. And they do have a verbal agreement with Salvation Army to use bathrooms and parking. So staff is in recommendation of this request. And typically, I'll point that out too. This is one of I've been here 19 years, and we've never actually required a special permit for a tent revival scenario. It's just that this particular location is on a very heavily traveled area, corner with Highway 63 and Logan. And we just thought we should probably review it to make sure everything's going to be okay. But these tent revivals happen all over the city without any permits or licenses. And it's just, this one just happened to be in a location that concerned us. So we are recommending approval of the request.
I just have one clarification. In his letter that's attached to his application, he does say for a minimum of 2 weeks, but it is a maximum of 2 weeks.
Well, it was I think he's online here. I thought I saw him. Dan, yep, Dan's on. It was my understanding 2 weeks was the most they were going to do, but the applicant is online. He can explain that better for you.
This is Dan Baker here. Yeah, the goal was for 2 weeks, and I didn't know how big of an issue it would be, but I mean, if there is a lot of interest in a decent sized crowd, we potentially could go longer than 2 weeks if that would be in the realm of possibility. But 2 weeks is the goal.
Okay. I just want to clarify, if we approve it the way it's written and we're approving it for 2 weeks, there wouldn't be anything beyond 2 weeks.
This is
I think
Schrader
we
with
need a
staff.
win-
You can certainly change that in the motion.
Yeah, if you wanted to make it 3 weeks just to give him some room, that's certainly possible. Dan, you wouldn't see yourself going past 3 weeks, would you? Are you muted, Dan?
He is muted.
Oh. Anybody know how to do sign language? Hey, you're muted, Dan.
Well, let's just move on. Any other questions?
This is Beckman. I have a couple of questions for the applicant if we can get him back.
Okay.
Sorry, I just got disconnected. I just got back, so I don't
okay.
know what I missed. Sorry.
Okay, real quickly, Mr. Baker, how many days a week are these services going to take place?
We plan on doing every single night, seven nights a week.
And the services will run from when to when? What time?
7 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Okay. And I don't know whether you heard the discussion. Are you agreeable to limit this to 3 weeks?
Yes, we can do that.
So if we approve this, we could put a stipulation on that you have 3 weeks in order to hold these services, and you'd be okay with that.
Yes, we would be all right with that.
Do you know what date you plan on starting?
June 27th, that is a Sunday night of 2021.
So that would be your first service, and then you'd have services every night thereafter for, if you will, a 3-week period, if in fact you go 3 weeks.
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any other questions? Is there anybody in the audience? Anybody in the audience wish to speak in favor of the request? Hearing or seeing none, is there anybody in the audience wish to speak against the request? Okay, hearing, seeing none, then if there's no further questions, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, John.
All right. I move that the approval of the request by Dan Baker on behalf of Seed Sowers for a special permit to allow for a temporary religious facility located south of 222 Logan Avenue in the R3 Multiple Residence District be approved for the following reasons. The request would appear to be compatible with surrounding uses. The request would appear to have a sufficient parking available due to on-site, on-street, and nearby facilities. It is also primarily operated when other uses are not at peak parking usage. The use is temporary for 3 weeks. Starting, what was the date again?
June 27th.
Starting June 27th.
And then the end date would be July 18th.
3 weeks, so yep, July 18th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's approved.
I was an aye, I was muted, sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay, our third request by Tim Atchison for a variance to the minimum side yard setback requirements to allow for a 30 by 40 foot detached garage to be constructed with a 3-foot side yard setback, 7 feet short of the minimum 10 feet side yard setback, adjacent to a street right-of-way on a corner lot in an R2 1 and 2 family district located at 506 Milwaukee Avenue. Staff report.
Yeah, this is Western staff. I'll keep it short. It's pretty simple. This lot is on a corner lot adjacent to a platted, unimproved, dead-end portion of Roosevelt Street. And even though it's not been actually paved or actually used as street right-of-way, there still is a minimum side yard setback of 10 feet. The applicant originally wanted to vacate it, but it was going to take too long, and he wanted to get started on the project. So just to be careful, he suggested just getting a variance to be 3 feet from the right-of-way line, 7 feet short. Staff is in favor of it. I mean, the street's unimproved. It'll never, as far as we can tell, it's pretty impossible that it'll ever be improved further to the east or extended to the east. You know, there's uniqueness as like I said, the street is unlikely to ever be extended. There are no negative complaints or anything on file of the request. And so staff is therefore in recommendation of the request to be 3 feet instead of 10 feet.
Yeah. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, it's Jerry. I'm looking at the picture that was provided that shows the garages in red.
Yeah.
There seems to be an awful lot of land around there that he could comply with the actual variant, with the actual code, instead of asking for a variance. What is it that I'm not seeing?
No, you're absolutely right, Jerry. This is Westminster staff. And sorry, I was asked to kind of push this along and not read the entire staff report. So under number 1 criteria, there would not appear to be a lack of reasonable return as the applicant could build the same size structure and meet the 10-foot minimum side yard setback required. So he could still meet it. It's just he wanted to push it as far to that dead end portion of Roosevelt as possible.
He wanted it as close to the corner of his lot as he could get it.
Right.
Okay.
This is Schrader with staff. I don't think that little red diagram is accurate though. That's basically showing it right up to the corner. And
Well, but if you take away the red, the yellow boundary around it, yeah, it wasn't meant to be exact. It's just the approximate location. So it's adjacent. He wanted it way down in the actual right of way, as far away from the house as possible, but just didn't want to wait to do the vacate. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody, I think I saw at one point the applicant was on. Does he wish to speak?
Yep, I saw.
Yeah, I'm still on. Yep.
Okay. If you'd like to make a comment, if not, it's fine. You don't have to.
No, I'm just just trying to put up a building there. It's gonna mirror the house. You know, the front will look just like the front of my house. Just trying to make it, you know, aesthetically pleasing as I can. That's about it. Want to improve my property.
If I
Okay.
may, why does it need to be? Why do you need the variance? Why can't you just put it a little bit farther out from your line?
When I actually had it surveyed, and I'm actually only like 2 feet short, so I'm like 8 feet from my property line. I've got 2 large trees that I don't want to remove.
Okay.
On the back corner, it'd be the northeast corner, and they're big, beautiful, you know, trees. I just didn't want to have to remove them.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anybody? Yes, is there anybody there that wishes to speak against the request?
Mr. Chair, I have one more question.
Okay.
Given what the applicant just said, number 1 on the staff recommendations, do we have to modify that or leave it as is? Are we going to cause a problem?
No, he could go up to 3 feet.
Okay, it'd be up to 2. Okay, thank you.
If he puts it 8 feet back, that's fine.
Yeah.
Just can't come any closer than the 3.
just sounds like he wants to avoid the tree.
Yeah.
This isn't going to be setting us up for any precedent, is it?
No, we've had plenty of side yard setback requirements. I
I
think the precedent here would be that Roosevelt Street is probably a vacated
All right.
street, and that could be our exception there.
Okay.
Okay, I don't think there was any. I don't think that train was objecting to it. So was there anybody else?
You don't count.
Okay. So if there's no more questions or comments, is there I'd entertain a motion?
Mr. Chair, this is
Okay, go ahead.
April. I'll make a motion to approve the request by Tim Atchison for a variance to the minimum side yard setback requirements to allow for a 30 by 40 detached garage to be constructed with a 3-foot side yard setback, 7 feet short of the minimum 10-foot side yard setback, adjacent to the street right of way on a corner lot in an R2, 1 and 2 family residence district located at 506 Milwaukee Avenue. Now I lost my paper. For the following reasons. Approval of a 3-foot side yard setback would not appear to alter the character of the surrounding neighborhood. Approval of the variance would not appear to have a negative impact on the area, as the location of the proposed garage is adjacent to an unpaved dead-end portion of Roosevelt that's not likely to be extended to the east in the future. And number 3, staff has not received any complaints on the request.
Second.
I'm not sure. Who seconded that?
I did, Jerry.
Okay. Any further comments, questions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Okay, our request number 4. Request by Nagel Signs on behalf of Grace Baptist Church for a variance to the self-illuminating flashing part sign regulations to allow for the replacement of a 64 square foot monument sign with a new 36-foot opaque self-illuminating and digital sign in the R3 1 and 2 family district located at 3820 Hammond Avenue. Staff report.
Seth, you're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. I'll just give an abbreviated version of the staff report. Yeah, the applicant is just proposing to remove an existing 64-foot square foot monument sign and replace it with a new 36 square foot opaque self-illuminating sign and digital sign. The site question is just located 340 feet north of East San Juan Drive and Hammond Avenue intersection. It's kind of like in there's commercial directly to the east, and then there's just some residential to the south. So basically approving this type of a sign at that location isn't going to be much of a detriment to the community. The sign will actually be smaller square footage wise than the existing monument sign. The variance is just needed just because of the site is basically in question is zoned R2, and then basically anything like in the R2, if there's doesn't allow for any type of digital signage. So that's the main reason for the need of the variance. And there's several examples. Several of these have been approved in the past, such as West High School, Lowell Elementary, Westminster Church, Waverly Schools Administration Building, Central Christian Church, Hoover Middle School. So there's this type of precedent's already been set. These type of signs have already been approved in several other areas throughout town. The variance, like I said, is just required because it's R2 and it's a digital sign. Therefore, staff recommends that the request by Nagel Signs on behalf of Grace Baptist Church for a variance to the self-illuminating flashing parts sign regulations in the R2 1 and 2 family residence district to allow for the installation of a 36 square foot opaque self-illuminating and digital sign located at 3820 Hammond Avenue be approved for the following reasons. The request would not appear to have a negative impact on the area. The previous sign has existed over 20 years without any complaints. The sign is an important tool for keeping members of the congregation and public aware of the many programs and public events offered by the church. And that's the. Is there any questions from the planning or from the Board of Adjustment? I apologize.
How's the updated ordinance coming? So we don't have to have this question anymore?
Yeah, I mean, we've had discussions about updating this thing for years, but we've never actually, I don't know, have had the time to address it or to fix it, but yeah, it's,
This is Schrader with staff. We also haven't had the direction.
There it is.
On,
I just wanted to say that so it was on the record. That was it.
got it.
That was it.
I mean, there's some pros and cons. So, yeah.
Okay,
I'll see if I can have some discussion with staff and report back next month.
okay. Is there anybody there who would speak in favor of the request?
Brian with Nagel. Yeah, as Seth spoke, I think it helps their congregation be able to get the message across to more than only just the people, but also passersby who may see interest in their church and not know it otherwise. My one biggest draw was, yes, it is a R2. However, north we have the parcel north is a little strip mall, C1. Directly across is Menards, C2, and south another C2. So not quite an island on the back end. However, almost impossible to view that sign from the back west portion of the church's parcel there. I guess that would be, other than that, we're reducing the size of the sign, and this sign will remove the current sign, in which is currently in the city's right of way. So our whole intent is to come in strong with a sign that meets code, other than the non-flashing parts entity of the code.
Okay. Anybody?
Mr. Chair, this is Beckman. So, Mr. Buss, you're saying that you're going to reposition this sign so it's not in the right of way, or it's going to remain in the right of way?
So the current sign, it's a big old sign that's been there for too long. I don't understand how it was once positioned in the city right away. However, it is approximately 7 feet onto the city right away. This sign has a new footing, new foundation. We are putting that out, on the church's property rather, and out of the city right of way.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, originally the applicant was looking at an encroachment agreement, and then after I looked at the plat book and conversation with Jamie Knutson, there was a sewer line that would have been in the encroachment area. So worked with Brian and suggested to drop the encroachment agreement and move it back from its current location. So yeah, it'll be the sign where it's going will be within their property lines and won't be in any easements of any kind.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak in favor of the request? Is there anybody there that wishes to speak in opposition to the request? If there's no further comments or questions, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to approve the request by Nagel Signs on behalf of Grace Baptist Church for a variance to the self-illuminating / flashing parts sign regulations in the R2 1 and 2 family residence district to allow for the installation of a 36 square foot opaque self-illuminating and digital sign located at 3820 Hammond Avenue. Be approved for the following reasons. Number 1, the request would not appear to have a negative impact on the area. Number 2, the previous sign has existed for over 20 years without any complaints. And number 3, the sign is an important tool for keeping members of the congregation and the public aware of the many programs and public events offered by the church.
I'll second.
Yeah. There's no further comments or questions. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Approved.
Thank you.
Final request by Walnut Baptist Church for a variance to install a temporary banner sign for a period of 365 days, 305 days more than the maximum 60 days allowed in an R3 multiple residence district located at 1307 West Ridgeway Avenue. Staff report.
This is Dornoff with staff. Section of the zoning ordinance that pertain to this request is chapter 26, outdoor advertising, signs and billboards, 1026-14, J banner, portable and temporary signs. The use of exterior banner, portable or temporary type signage shall be allowed on a temporary basis not to exceed 60 cumulative days within a calendar year. The applicant is requesting a variance to be able to leave the banner sign up for an entire year. Criteria: the lack of reasonable return. There would appear to be a lack of reasonable return if the variance is not approved, as they will need to apply for a variance to the sign limits for the district as a permanent sign, but that would need a variance to the signage limits in the district. 2, uniqueness. There would appear to be uniqueness to the request, as the applicant only needs to sign up for 1 year and then it will be removed. Restricting the sign to 1 year assures that the sign will not become weathered or torn, and if left up beyond 1 year, there appears to be uniqueness because if any other avenue is pursued with this sign, it would require variance to the size limits, and there has been no objections. Therefore, staff recommends that Walnut Baptist Church for variance to install a temporary banner sign for a period of 365 days, 305 days more than the maximum 60 days allowed in an R3 multiple residence district located at 1307 West Ridgeway Avenue, be approved for the following reasons. There would appear to be a lack of reasonable return on the request. There would appear to be uniqueness to the request, and there's no objections to the request.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Okay, is there anybody there who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Okay, hearing or seeing none, is there anybody who wishes to speak against the request? Okay, hearing or seeing none. There's no further questions or comments, then I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve the request by Walnut Baptist Church for a variance to install a temporary banner sign for a period of 365 days, 305 days more than the maximum of 60 days allowed in an R3 multiple family residence district located at 1307 West Ridgeway Avenue, be approved for the following reasons. Number 1, there would appear to be a lack of reasonable return on the request. Number 2, there would appear to be uniqueness to the request. And number 3, there have been no objections to the request.
I'll second it.
Okay. If there's no further questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Request is approved. Guess the last item, is there any discussion items that we need to talk about?
Mr. Chair, I just want to thank the staff, Chris Western in particular, that worked on Sunday to get this packet to us. I guess there was all kinds of gremlins in their computer system, and I just so appreciate the extra effort.
So do I.
Yes. Okay.
I'll bring donuts.
This is Schrader with staff. I do have one other discussion item. So that darn train, let me shut my window.
You mean the symbol behind you?
Train goes through the symbol. So the city of Waterloo will start in May having in-person meetings. So for boards and commissions, it will actually be a requirement that it either be in person or hybrid, in person with an option for virtual only. is not going to be allowed as an option. So I just wanted to have a little bit of discussion on that and engage commission members' thoughts on if they would attend in person or would want to remain virtual. We were doing hybrid meetings before we went to virtual only, and they do work. There are, some complications to the hybrid meetings in terms of people hearing or seeing things, that are in person versus the ones that are online, particularly the ones online or by if they're on phone, they can't see anything, period. But there's no fix to that. But we have had some complications with the online being able to hear adequately. But I'm kind of guessing that there's going to be some that are going to want to remain virtual. So I'm assuming we'll go with a hybrid. But let me hear your thoughts.
I'm coming in person.
I'm ready to come back. And because I joined by phone, all I got to do is turn the TV to the public access channel and I can, see the meeting. Granted, it's not real time, but I can see what is going on.
Yeah,
Eric, what is the city's requirements for mask in the offices?
So right now the requirement is masks in City Hall unless you are in your own personal office and not with other people.
Okay.
I'm ready to come back.
I'm ready to come back too. What is the date for the May meeting?
The May meeting would be May 25th, of which Memorial Day isn't until May 31st, a fifth Monday this year. So it's ahead, or that's the Tuesday ahead of the Memorial Day weekend.
Perfect. I'll be there.
Jerry, how
Yeah.
about you?
Oh, sorry.
No, are you good? I think with your question.
No, I had a question for you. Are you planning to be there in person? Jerry?
See, now you muted yourself.
My dog is barking at the mailman. Yes.
Okay, all right. I think we're ready to come back in person completely, so.
Okay. So then
With mask.
yeah, mask would be required, yes. Then the only other question would be, would we want to still have the online option available for participants, applicants, and or interested parties?
I think that that's a good idea. Personally, going forward, just it's a good way to continue with our transparency. So you can come in person or you can just log on.
I mean, because we've always
Showed it online.
well, I mean, we've always had made available the option if someone, with an applicant or a general interested party, it's a lot harder. But for a board member, we've always had the option where we bring in a phone and make it. I mean, it doesn't work the greatest, but we essentially had a virtual option before. So the Zoom video conferencing app makes it much better than what we did before, I guess. So.
Yeah.
But that's what you're saying. There's no way that we're gonna have Zoom meeting with 5 of us sitting there and an applicant coming in on Zoom.
I'm suggesting that we could offer that, and
How would we see it? How do we see them?
You would see them on the television screen.
Up in the corner?
Yeah.
Okay.
So normally the view is set to show like all, or, as many as will fit in the screen. I believe it is an option to set it to only show the speaker. So we could look at that. That way the speaker would kind of fill the television, make it a little more visible.
I think we should offer the Zoom option.
I agree.
Agreed. Simply because there are people who are still not comfortable coming out.
Okay. Do we have to vote on this?
I don't think you need to vote. We were just kind of looking for some direction, and we did hear from the television studios that kind of run the video part of it, and they noted that we would put them on the screen where they would usually see themselves. So,
All right.
So it should work.
If there's no other discussion items, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, please.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.